Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. If you're watching for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined as always by my beautiful wife. Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she stunning? Isn't she stunning? Isn't she
Hi.
magnificent? Isn't she
You're so
lovely?
sweet.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Hi, guys. I'm Tanya Coleman. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah. So we're back. We're live tonight. Thanks for everyone for joining us. We're gonna have a really good conversation. I think a personal conversation, something that we have walking through right now. And so we decided to share this with the people. But before we jump into tonight's topic, how have you been doing? What?
You asked me that today on
Yeah.
this episode. Actually, today has been a great day. It's been a good day.
Okay.
Church was great this morning.
Mhm.
The word was like on point.
Yes.
God said, "Okay, I know you. I know where you are, and this is what you need."
All
So
right.
that was good.
Yeah.
The last couple of weeks have been ups and downs. We had some fun and then not so much fun, and we'll get into all of that. But
Yeah.
but
Okay.
today's a good day.
All right, good.
Yeah.
I'm
What
glad
about
to
you?
see. I'm doing really well. Excited. Glad to be back in the state of Louisiana. We've been kind of gallivanting across the southern states,
Yeah.
and glad to be back home. It's
Yeah.
it's nothing like I always say, no matter how great of a bed you sleep in, how good of a hotel you stay in,
Mhm.
there's nothing like being in your
Yeah.
own bed.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I was gonna say. I'm glad to be back in my bed.
yeah. So tonight we're talking about how or supporting your spouse in times of grieving, and we're talking about this because I don't know if you guys saw the post that Tanya made, but we unfortunately lost a family member, a really close family member for Tanya, and we as a family we haven't had to walk through that too many times. I'm thinking back.
Right. There's
Well, I guess we've
we've
been through
walked through
several
a
things.
few since we've been married. We've walked through a few. I
Yeah,
think there may have been. Yeah, there we walked through
yeah, and
some.
I guess maybe we did such a great job of supporting each other, just didn't seem like But yeah, so
No, they. Yeah,
well, I
you're
mean,
right.
it's just
It's been a while.
yeah,
It's been a few
yeah,
years for
yeah.
sure.
Okay,
But
so you want to kind of take us through, you know, the story, what happened, and then we can
sure,
get into kind of
sure.
how.
And I won't give like a whole lot of information because I have my story
Right.
of
And that, yeah,
what's
your story,
you
correct.
know.
Yeah.
One of my first cousins who I grew up with, more like a sibling, definitely when we were younger and growing up. We lived close to one another when we lived in Gulfport. I've lived in their home. We lived together. His mom and brother and my
Yeah.
mom, we all lived at my grandfather's house. So we grew up really, really close together. And I lived on and off with them actually, growing up. And so my mom's sister, my Aunt Mary Jean, um, she lost her youngest son. And so that, and he's was a couple years younger than me. Um, Getting that news was shocking. It was really hard, getting the news, allowing it to sit in, and I think that was initially was the hardest thing for me was really realizing that it had actually happened, and so many things when I got the news came rushing back to me in that moment. And I think I heard the news from her, and that was traumatic, and my heart just bled for her, and his wife and kids still. Um, and I think when I said it out loud, when you came home and you were like, "What's wrong?" And I had to say it out of my mouth,
Mm-hmm.
was when it still didn't sink in that it happened, but it just like it was hard to say out loud, if I can
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So losing a close sibling who, I mean, a close cousin who you grew
No,
up with
you're right,
like a
because it
sibling.
was more. He was more of a
Yeah,
sibling. Yeah.
definitely. That was, my, he was younger than me. So growing up, I saw him as a, my younger sibling, and his brother, older brother David, as an older, cousin. And there's a small group of us who are around the same age that were together a lot. My uncle Charlie, who I talked
Yeah.
about in the Father's Day episode, was kind of the neutral ground for all of us. Even when we were not living together or anything like that, we would all gather at his house. Um, and so, with losing Maurice, it is still unimaginable,
Mm-hmm.
and what saddens me, what I think I realized going through this process, is that because we're no longer living in the same city and have not been for years and years, and I know for a long time a lot of things to get in my way of going back to visit and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, we hadn't really been in contact with each other. Um, and just on and off here there, throughout the years. And I think a part of my grief is that, here's someone that I truly love, like my love for my family has never ceased or lessened. um but not being able to know his children by face and name. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like really, really know them and how they are, what's going on in their lives, and um just being in relationship with his family. And so a part of, I think, what I've learned in all of this is that we have to do a better job of staying in contact with each other.
Yeah.
If it's just a phone call or a text, getting together for, and they did a family thing, but I wasn't able to go earlier this year. um just making yourself more available for that.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I so loved about you and your family. I joked, the other week, and I said, my first Christmas with you in Fenton with your family, I was like, who are these people? They're sitting around the piano playing music, and everybody can sing. Like everybody can sing, and it was just a beautiful thing. And so those gatherings, with family really mean a lot,
Yeah.
and so realizing that you have someone that you love so dearly who's now gone on to be with the Lord. And I understand, absent from the body is present with God. I completely understand that. But I also know that it was too soon for him to go. He was a
Yeah.
45-year-old man,
Yeah.
still raising children,
Yeah.
so um that part, in some ways I am angry about, if I can say that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
um so yeah, it was just sudden and hard, and hard to process. Going to the services was hard. I was so grateful that you were there, because if you had not been there, I don't know, just to
Mm-hmm.
see, because that's the moment where reality kind of hits you in the face,
Yeah. Yeah, and just to kind of go back, you're absolutely right with family. And just to quote one of the elders of the family, the
Mhm.
wise Uncle Thomas Earl.
Oh my.
And I said it almost proper. I said Thomas Earl, but I'm gonna say it
Like
the
we said,
Mississippi way,
Thomas Earl.
Thomas Earl.
Hmm.
But he said that. He's like, we got to stop
He did.
meeting like this.
Hmm.
He said,
He
we
did.
need to. So yeah, you're right. But yeah, so for me, I do not like to see you hurting.
Mm.
It's very hard. Or my girls, or my mom, or anybody. I don't like to see people hurting. It makes me very uncomfortable,
Mhm.
which it's ironic that I am a coach, and we
Mm-hmm.
coach and counsel people together, and so I do that a lot. But it's
Mm-hmm.
just, I guess in that setting, it's different when it's different when it's you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to see you. And for me, I will honestly say that it can be, for me, a little intimidating
Mm-hmm.
because it's totally outside. I can't do anything
Mm-hmm.
to make it stop.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do anything to make the pain go away.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do anything to make you feel better in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it something that you have to process through?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's a very hard and difficult thing
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Mm-hmm.
So and I know that may sound selfish to say it that way, but it's a very uncomfortable situation for me. But I'm so very grateful that we have been doing the work
Mm-hmm.
that we've been doing. We've been really, becoming more self-aware, learning how to deal with our emotions and
Mm-hmm.
process emotions and hold space
Mm-hmm.
for others.
Right.
And I think all of that, I know for me this time around, and even I'm thinking back to when my dad died, that was what, 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago now. Even that was, it was better than, I'm thinking about, other family members who we've lost.
Mm-hmm.
um it was, I think it was a more of a difficult, and I don't want to say difficult, but we didn't process it, I think, as healthy, let me say it that way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as, because I know, again, for me, the tendency is, either I walk away from it, I don't want to be a part of it, I hold it down, I shove it back down, and but I think this time around, it was we were able to do it in a more healthy way.
Right.
I'll just say it.
Right.
Not to say that it was easier.
Right.
That's
No,
not a
not at all.
that's
I
not a
know
good term,
exactly
but
what you're saying.
healthier. So, you know, for me, when we're talking about being a support,
Mm-hmm.
and especially,
My
like,
eyes. I'm sorry.
they're leaking. I saw you were getting a little glossed over. I was like, oh Lord, we're gonna go get us some tissue.
I'm good. I'm
Okay,
good. I'm
but huh?
nothing.
But for me, I remember the day,
Mm-hmm.
and I came home and I walked in the house, and you were actually on the phone, or you had just gotten off the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and you were standing there, and I was like, what? And when you said it and you just started crying, for me, like I said, in past, those moments are just so, and because initially I didn't know what was going on,
Right.
you know,
It took me a few minutes to get it
and
out.
it's like,
Yeah.
because I mean, there's just like you, I mean, things started going through my head
Mm-hmm.
because mom was out of town, your mom is out of town, your sister lives out of town, the girls were out of town,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, who, what
Mm-hmm.
happened, and then finally you told me it was Maurice, and for me, what I'm learning to do again was just really hold space for you
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in that moment. And I don't remember how long it was, but that's all I could do.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't fix anything, and I didn't want to, shrink back from that moment,
Mm-hmm.
because, like I said, for me, in the past, it's been emotions and all of that has been very uncomfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would want you to, okay, suck it up and move on. And I know
Right.
I wouldn't dare say that out loud, but you
Right.
know what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right.
I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this, I think the best thing I could have done for you in that moment was just to sit in that with you
Mm-hmm.
and just sit there and cry with you, cry for you, and just be there with you in that moment.
Mm-hmm. So I think that is kind of the point. That is the point of bringing this topic to the podcast,
Yeah.
is learning to hold space for your spouse
Yeah.
in these difficult moments of loss and grief. Yes, they are a part of, our everyday lives. It happens. And depending, you said it earlier, I think this time we are able to process it in a more healthy way because we have learned to, one, allow our emotions to flow, like feel the feelings, and allow one another to experience whatever those emotions are, and to hold space for one another.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it wasn't that.
Yeah.
We would come with something to try to stuff the emotion, in that moment, and not really allow the person to grieve. When I think about when your dad died, and you found out, or you I think you went there. You were there when it happened.
Well, I wasn't there when it happened.
You weren't there when it happened.
I flew home the day before.
Right. You're gone and come back.
Yeah.
But when you were going through your emotion of grieving, all I could do was hold you. When you sat and we had a conversation, you shared that with the girls, it was like, that's all we really could do. And I think sometimes where we miss it is when we say things like, it's going to be okay. Not that it's not going to be okay, but right now is not. Oh, this is not okay.
This is not okay.
It's not okay. And so right now I need for you to allow it not to be okay.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel okay, and it's not okay.
Yeah.
Right. And as people move forward, as time goes on with grieving, we tend to say some things that are not helpful.
Yeah.
You just need to move forward. Stop all of that crying. No. Allow that person to cry if they need to cry. Allow that person to sit with their feelings and their emotions, right? It's not that you're going to let someone go, years and years and years, and they're stuck in their house and in their room. And no, but a person can still be grieving and attending to their everyday lives, and if they have a moment where they are emotional about their loss, allow them that moment and sit with them in that moment. We have to be more mindful of the things that we say out of our mouths. Yes, we can encourage with, encouraging words. We can encourage with the word of God. We can encourage with those things, but we also have to allow people to experience the emotions. That's how we heal. We dig deep into the emotions and bring it up. And when we bring it up and bring it out, it's just like being nauseated. You feel better when you throw up. It's like, allow that person to experience the process of that grieving.
Yeah. And I was just thinking back, on, well, I'll say this. There was a post, and I hope I don't get this wrong. Friend of ours, Tyler Abear, he posted this about grief. And hopefully I don't get this wrong, but he said basically was grief, and it was a while back. He said grief is like, a container that has a ball inside of it. And every time that ball, let's say the ball is almost the same size as the container, every time that ball hits a side of that container, it's like experiencing that grief. He said, but what happens is over time, that ball begins to shrink. So it doesn't hit the sides as often, but it still hits the sides. So I guess my point is you're right. We have to give people and allow people to have that time. I was talking to my brother-in-law, and he was, just sharing with me about his brother. And I forgot how long it told me his brother passed. But it's been I think he said 7 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I was like, man, I didn't know it had been that long. And he said, yeah, and I'm just now really getting to a place where, I'm kind of getting over it. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. But we have to allow people we have to give people, just like you always said, the space and the grace. We have to give them that time and know that it's okay. And I don't know if this is, for me, and I always talk about the layers of this for me, But first of all, it's being a man, and
Mm-hmm.
real men don't cry.
Mm-hmm.
Be strong. You got to be strong for the family.
Mm-hmm.
You got to. You okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You got to be strong for the family.
Mm-hmm.
And going to us as African American
Mm-hmm.
people. Typically, we have that whole persona. We have to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be brave for the family. And then coming from um, a and this is just my experience. I'm not making a generalization here, but this is just me, coming from like a Christian or a faith
Mm-hmm.
word of faith background. It's like, the emotion thing is, you don't need to be all emotional, and
Mm-hmm.
we look at the emotions negatively.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember this when Uncle Charlie passed.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm saying the Mississippi dialect here. It's actually Charlie Lee.
Yes, it is.
But they don't say Charlie Lee,
Nope,
they
we
say
say
Charlie. So
Uncle Charlie.
Uncle Charlie, when he passed, and I remember you sitting in that church, and I could see you literally fighting back
Mm-hmm.
the tears. I don't know if you remember this. And I looked at you and I said, baby, it's okay to cry,
Mm-hmm.
And again, but just allowing yourself to go there. Why do you think that is? Why do we feel the need, and I, you hear people say, man, oh, they've been so strong.
Right. And we hooray that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why do you think that is?
And you're
saying as a licensed professional counselor.
Are you saying why is that we don't allow ourselves to experience the emotion as people? Or are you saying from a faith perspective?
All of the above.
Okay.
Wherever you want to hit.
So I know for me during that time, like you just spoke of when my uncle passed away, it was that, I was telling myself the story, I was repeating absent from the body is present with the Lord,
and that's the truth.
It is
that
the
is
truth.
The truth.
It's absolutely the truth. And being strong and not allowing my emotions to take me away, and all of those things. And I remember sitting there in the church and you saying that to me. I remember standing, it was the end of the service. We were on the base at the cemetery, and everyone was walking away from the casket, and it was like my feet were planted in the floor. And I think, I'm getting emotional.
That's okay. Don't let it out. Let it out. No.
But I remember that moment, and still trying to fight, not allow the emotions to come. But I couldn't leave because of who he was to me. That was I have a biological dad, but my uncle was my father.
Yeah. And
so, and still today I have moments where that grief revisits me.
Sure.
Okay. But I realize now what's different, and I said this in another post that I shared on Facebook, and I saved that one for later because I do want to be sensitive to his wife and mom. But what's different from then and now is that I was able to allow myself with Maurice to feel my feelings that day. And I had already had to talk, me and Jesus, you're not going to run away from this. You're going to allow yourself to feel what it is that you feel, and remember every moment that comes back to you that you spent with him. All of the laughter, all of the cutting up and stuff we got into when we were little. David was laughing. I was telling him the other day when we were sitting there, I said, no, I wasn't telling Dave. I was telling one of the girls. We were at Aunt Mary Jean's house, and I said, me and Maurice had a fight right there on the floor. And Aunt Mary Jean walked in, and we were rolling on the floor because he had been picking on Takesha. And, that was, my little sister. And so we had words or whatever. But, and we were probably like, man, maybe 19 or 20 years old.
Oh,
like,
y'all
we were big.
Oh, I thought y'all were young. Oh, wow.
No, we were almost grown.
Oh, okay.
But well, he was a little younger, but it was those boys, like those boys were something.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I was the only girl with those boys, so I had to be kind of tough,
Yeah.
but I allowed myself to revisit those moments, the happy times, the sad times when they lost their dad, all of those kinds of things, those memories just come flooding back. And
Yeah.
what I've learned is that grief is a representation of the love that you have for a person.
Wow, that is good.
And so
Say that again.
grief is a representation of the love that you have for a person.
Mm-hmm.
And what I allowed myself to do is experience the love for my cousin in that moment.
Yeah.
Right. And grieve the loss of his life and the time that I missed with him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, for me, if I answer the question, that's the difference from then, many years ago till now for me, is that I've learned that it's important for us to allow ourselves to experience emotion, happy, sad, glad, anger, whatever it is. Allow yourself to experience it. No, you don't have to let it rule your life and carry you away and cause you to do things, that shouldn't be done, but you can still feel your feelings. That's how we heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's really good. And from for me, and I'm speaking from the support side, because this time around, that's the roles we were playing. But yeah, it's again, even though you may feel uncomfortable, or you're not, you typically don't express yourself in that manner. It's you have to be brave, and when I say brave, I don't mean brave as in be strong and no. I mean you have to be brave to go there, because it takes courage. I think absolutely. It takes courage to go to that place, and especially for me, like I said, as a man, and I'm not saying all men, but for me as a man, that was part of my programming, in that you don't do that, but I had to be brave with you and go to that, allow you to go and go there with you, and just be there and allow you to cry on my shoulder, cry in my chest, or wherever, and not be and maybe you can find a better word from it, but I'm saying not be offended at your grief. Because it's just like, sometimes I think
that's a good word though. Go ahead.
But I think sometimes it's like, we get to that place, it's like, oh, why you got to do all that? Why don't, different people. And like you said, I know that there's some areas where, maybe if you cross certain thresholds, maybe you need to seek help, or
absolutely.
But I'm saying you need to allow people, and different people grieve different ways.
Absolutely.
So we need to just be able to be there, support, be that shoulder to cry on, and like you said, don't rush people through that grieving process. Let them take their time, because I know for me, it would be, I'd be driving down the road and I hear a song, it would remind me of my dad, and I remember this one time, and this is to show you how closely linked all these emotions are. I remember this one time we were driving, and me, Bethany, and Bailey were in the car, and I was telling them some story about dad, and we were all cracking up, laughing, and all of a sudden I just started crying. I was laughing and I started crying. I was saying he was a really good dad, but again, like I said, just giving people that time and that space to go through that process.
Right.
And even though it may not look that way for us, but we're not them.
Nope.
And just be there. And we all, one of the greatest examples I've heard of empathy is, like empathy, the difference between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy would be if somebody fell in the hole, is to look down in the hole and it's like, man, I'm really sorry that you fell in that hole. But empathy is like taking the ladder, going down in the hole with them, sitting in the hole with them, and being there to help them climb up the ladder to come out of the hole
when they're ready.
When they're ready, yeah. And some people may argue against that, but I think that's what people need so much in their life, is not just somebody shouting from the, okay, it's time for you to come out.
Right.
Sometimes people need someone to get down there with them and help them
and just sit
and just sit. Yeah.
That is the most powerful thing that you can do for any person who's grieving, who's had some loss, who's going through any kind of, emotion, where they may be, depressed or what have you. In that moment, you sitting with them and just holding space for them, allowing them to cry, allowing them to talk, allowing them to be silent. And you may be in the same space and not even be interacting with one another, but you being just very present with them, that's the most powerful thing that you can do.
Yeah.
But you said something earlier. You said me not being offended with your grief. Oftentimes that is the problem, is that we are uncomfortable with the other person's grieving or their emotion. And so because we are uncomfortable, we want to turn it off like a faucet and just fix it. Oh, baby, be strong. Oh, it's going to be okay. It's not okay right now. And right now I can't be strong. Not saying that I am not a strong individual, but in this moment, I am feeling this. I need to experience this feeling, and the best way that you can support me is to allow me to experience this. But because people are uncomfortable with emotion, especially when it comes to grief or anger or what have you, sometimes some people are uncomfortable with happiness and joy. Because people are uncomfortable with that, we have the tendency to disrupt it. Don't disrupt it. If you want to be supportive, hold space for that person. And you ask them what it is that they need from you, and don't tell them what they need to do.
Yeah. So
that's
you heard what she said. So in wrapping up, so we just wanted to share that with you, and we talk about vows and go back to the vows a lot. But it talks about, we pledge and honor, we pledge to honor and love in good and bad times. And so sometimes, life is full of the ups and the downs.
Absolutely.
And all of those, if we got rid of the downs, then we wouldn't be the people that we are today. So it's like, you are this beautiful tapestry of everything in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty, the handsome, the beautiful, the sexy, all of that,
all of the things
is what made you the beautiful masterpiece that you are. So don't run away from the hard times, because those have something to say about your life as well. Not to, like Tanya said, I'm not saying that you should be stay in that place and dwell there, but what I'm saying is that's part of that's also shaping who you are. So real quick, let's just what to someone out there who has a spouse, or they're in a relationship, friendship, whatever, with someone, and they may be going through a difficult time, whether that's loss of a loved one, whether that's loss of a job, or just going through a hard time. What are a couple tips, tricks, and tools? Thank you. I always forget the last one that you could give people to help them help their friends, family members, loved ones, what have you.
One, the first thing that I would say, and I said it earlier, is grace and space. Allow that person the grace to feel what they feel. Even if you don't get it, you don't understand it, you feel like, it's been 2 months, it's been a year, it's been 2 years, you should have moved on by now. You have to give that person grace. You are not walking in their shoes, right? You are not experiencing the loss that this person is experiencing, right? So give them that grace, give them room to grieve, right? So what that can look like is that you are sitting with that person and you're just there. Hey, do you need anything? Is there anything
Mm-hmm.
that I can do for you?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Or just sitting. Sometimes you don't
Right.
have to say anything.
Right.
Sometimes just being there,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're not physically there with them, just sending a text.
Right.
And you don't have to be just, hey, love you, thinking about you,
Mm-hmm.
praying for you.
Yep. Send a text,
Yeah.
send a card, send a meal,
Yeah.
something, would you like for me to pick up some groceries for you this week? What have you, but just being present and holding space. When they're ready to talk, listen.
Mm-hmm.
Just listen. You don't have to give feedback. You don't have to, do anything other than just listen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, again, ask them for what they need.
And
Don't tell them what to do, but ask them what they need.
I'll add something to that as
Mm-hmm.
well. And you maybe correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I think one tendency is when someone else has a loss or loses someone, we want to tell them about our loss.
Oh, Father, yes.
And I mean, I remember I lost my dad.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be
and
okay.
This is what I did.
That don't do that.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is, again, you're taking you're taking the spotlight off that person and putting it on yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's why I say sometimes it's just being there with them,
right,
and holding that space for them.
right. And if that's uncomfortable for you, then I encourage you to do a deep dive within yourself and find out, why is it uncomfortable for me when someone else is grieving or
Yes.
they're upset? That's something you have to figure out. Are you okay with your own emotions? Have you
Yeah.
allowed yourself to grieve your losses and to experience and feel your feelings?
Yeah.
Right. Your feelings do not take you out of your faith. Your feelings do not steal from your strength as a person. It only adds to it.
Absolutely.
Jesus experienced grief in the
Yeah.
Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus experienced grief when he lost a friend.
Yes.
Yes, he did raise him from the dead, but he experienced grief.
Yeah.
He experienced grief when he was about to be separated from the Father.
Yeah.
So he experienced those things, and he got up. He got up from that moment, but he had the moment.
Yeah.
So be a good supportive spouse, friend, church member, what have you, and just be there for that person in that moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, man,
that's
look.
helpful.
Yeah, I know it did, and it was helpful for me just to even talk through that. Because it's like it just helped me because I know this is not hadn't been the first time for us, won't be the last. Not that we're expecting it, but I'm just saying it's a part of life. So it's just it reminds you of what to do in those times, because sometimes we don't know what to do.
Right.
And I think that's probably one of the most dangerous things, is not knowing what to do and just doing something or doing anything, So hopefully you got something out of that. You got anything else?
No. Well, I will say this one more thing, and we said it, but even in the initial moments, maybe interacting with the person who's just had the loss, whether it's in their home, hospital, the funeral, what have you, don't feel like you have to say anything. A hug and I love you. That is amazing.
Yeah,
that is amazing.
Yeah,
that's it. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got for you this week. Hopefully that helped you. If you know someone or you yourself are going through some things that maybe you feel like you can't move on from those moments, or you need someone just to talk to, someone to hold space for you, please reach out.
Absolutely.
Tanya, well, I don't know if you're taking clients, but
you can reach out
and we could try to work you in. So that's all we got for you this week. Please remember to like, follow, share, subscribe. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. And we're here every Sunday night at 6:30 p.m. We're working on getting some additional guests.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed having our guests on during the month of May and June.
Yes, absolutely.
So we want to do more of that. So if you guys have any comment or any topics that you would like for us to discuss, by all means, let us know. And as always, we love to hear your comments. We love to see your comments. We love your feedback. So that's all we have for you this week. This is Glenn and Tanya Coleman reminding you that
your marriage matters.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.